Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about casting, in particular the way I cast. Now, casting is all about getting loads of things right, loads of small things right. If you get all these little things right, then it equals a big thing. And casting long, accurate and consistent is all about body movements, okay? We've got to get moving the right way in the right order. But before we look at all that, we have to get the setup right, we have to get the basics right. So today I'm going to look at one particular point of the cast, and that is how we hold the line, how we hold the rod, how we hold the line. There's right and wrong ways of doing it. I see loads of mistakes here. So I'm going to show you how I do it, what works best for me. And hopefully you're going to try this and it's going to be better for you as well. Right, okay, let's have a look at a few ways that I see on my tuitions that people hold the line, okay? I'm going to start off from the real bad to the okay. So let's have a look at the worst way, I think personally, to hold the line for overhead casting. And this is what I see a lot, okay? So we get people, they're there, and what they do is they get the line and they hold it like that. Can you see that I've trapped it against the reel? Bar arm is open and they're ready to cast. Now, that is not a very good way of holding the line. What can happen here is during the cast, the line can get caught. Actually, I've seen it happen quite a bit. The line can get caught round the line clip. So you're pulling the line back. As you go, it gets caught around the line clip. Of course, if it gets caught around the line clip, you're going to snap off, and we don't want that. The angle of the line coming from the spool is not very good. And also, the time it takes you to straighten your finger during the fast part of the cast, which is the end, it's going to take an awful long time for you to straighten your finger to let go of that line. By the time you've done that, you're probably going to let go too late. And that can cause you casting low and cause you casting left. Let's have a look at a few other ways that I see it, okay? A few other ways that I see is that people sometimes put, say, 2 fingers in front of the reel, and then what they want to do is they want to hold the line against the spool like that, okay? Which means, very common with match anglers, but what that means is when you're going for a big cast, that line can easily pull off of your finger there. You're going to let go too early this time. It's going to go very, very high, not very far, loads of slack out. So for powerful casts, I don't recommend that. Another way that people hold the line, they might have 3 fingers in front, which is getting better, and then they trap it against the rod there. Now, you can't trap that line against that rod because, again, when you're moving very, very quickly, you need to let go of the line at a certain point, and what's going to happen there is that you're going to take a long time to let go of that line, okay? So I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that at all. I'm going to show you the way that I hold the line, and this is the way that I prefer, especially with stiff rods. When you're trying to cast a long way, I find that this is the best way. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the whole hand in front of the reel, okay? 1 finger behind isn't too bad, so you've got 1 finger behind, but I would prefer the whole hand in front. Now, there's a few reasons why I prefer this, and one of them is you look at the line now. That line now wants to come off the spool. It's not being pulled behind like that and catching anything. It's going to come flying off the spool that way, nice and smoothly. There's going to be no issues. And when you're trying to cast for your big cast, you don't want no issues, okay? So that's one reason. That's one reason why I do that. Another reason why I do that is because you're moving the lever point up the rod. Now, with powerful rods, the more that you move the lever point up the rod, the easier it is to bend. So if I had my hands like that, for instance, that's really, really hard to bend that rod. If I move that hand up to there, it's going to be easier to bend the rod. And with surf casters, they hold the hand's right up the rod there, so it's right up there. That allows them to bend the rod easier. So that's a bonus. I appreciate that some custom rods are made to arm length. I still do that. I prefer a slightly wider grip hand spacing than I do one that's too narrow. Slightly longer handle is not too much of a problem for me. So that's the second reason. The third reason is all the weight of this rod in a cast is in front of the reel. As we're loading the rod, we might have a spom on there, we might have a lead on there, there's more carbon going that way. So we don't need no support behind the reel, so that's much better for that. And the last reason that I'm going to give you for this is, if you're doing a lot of spomming at range, and you're doing it regularly, and you put your hands there or there, I get really sore in between my fingers because it's getting wet, it's rubbing a lot. I don't want that. So by putting your hand in front of the reel, it solves all that as well. It is going to be awkward when you first try it, but give yourself 10 casts or so, and hopefully you will prefer it, because I definitely do, and it works for my overhead chucking, and it works when I've done my surf casting in the past as well. Go and give it a go. Another thing about holding the line is where on the finger that you hold your line. So what I mean by this is, you don't want to be holding the line too far up your finger. So if you can see from here, my line is right up there, and that's no good, because what's going to happen then is when you're casting and you're coming to let go of the line at the end of the cast, you've got to straighten your finger an awful long way so the line can be released, and the line can come down, catch your finger, and it will ruin the cast. The best place to hold the line, in my opinion, is halfway between the crease in your finger, which is right there. That's your crease in your finger. That's the end of your finger, and hold it halfway between there. Okay, so we're holding it there. And then what I want you to do is hold your finger halfway down to the spool. So it's not up there against the rod, it's down there. What that allows is, when you're casting and you need to let go quick, all you need to do is just straighten that finger and the line's gone. So there's no catching, it's nice and clean release. And the last part of this little video is about finger stalls. Okay, now I wear finger stalls, especially with braid and spomming at range. We all know braid's very thin, and if you're going to get a cut, braid's usually the way it's going to happen, especially when your hands are getting soft in spod mixes. Your skin gets soft, the braid's thin, it can cut easily. You're using big heavy spoms, stiff rods, big leads with braid. All that is a recipe for cut fingers. So definitely wear a finger stall there. I have to admit, with mono, I don't often wear it. I prefer the feel of not wearing it. But again, if you're casting big, I would just say use one. You can't go wrong then. Also, make sure that you do the clutches up on your reels. That's the way that you're going to get the worst cuts when you're casting. The spool slips and a braid leader or something runs across your finger, it's going to cut it pretty bad. And the worst cut I ever had, I was in France doing some casting demos, and somebody was using my rod, which is fine. I like people to use my rod, they can have a go with it. But it had a braided leader on this rod, so he was casting it a few times. I didn't know at the time, but he loosened the clutch after he had cast. So I picked it up, I was in front of everybody, I'm going to show him this big cast, look at my cast and all that. Stood up there to cast, halfway through the cast, the reel slipped, the spool turned, had this really, really big cut on my finger. It did sting a bit, there's this like bit of flap of skin. So I just pushed it down, got a plaster, wrapped it up for a few days, and luckily I was okay. But it could have been worse. I don't want anybody to go through that. So just wear one of them and you can't go wrong. That's my first little tip covered for this video. Now, what I want to do is I want to do loads of small videos going through my whole cast gradually. And by the time that I've gone through the whole series of videos, you should have a really good understanding of how my cast works. Give it a go, try it yourself. But also, if there's anything that you want me to cover on these little videos, please just put it in the comments. And I wanna help you guys with my knowledge, what I've learned over the years. So please ask me. I will cover most things. Also, of course, you always appreciate a subscribe. Never said that before. Always appreciate a subscribe. I do want to get more involved on this YouTube channel. So I hope it helps, and fire away with any questions.